Welcome everyone to a brand new year. Happy New Year to everyone who's watching and listening to this, and a brand new season of Dead Men Talk. And I've been chomping at the bit to get back to this, not just because I've given myself the longest break I have since I started podcasting. Actually managed to do 6 weeks, which was lovely. But when I knew how I was going to open this season up, I've been really excited because a new series, new year. I may as well take it right back to the beginning almost, because I get to welcome not only a great writer, but a great friend as well. And he was actually the first ever podcast guest I ever interviewed back in series 1. Richard Ayre, welcome back, mate.
Hello, how'd you do? How are you doing, Chris?
Oh, good. Yeah, all good. Thank you, mate. Yeah, you?
Good. Yes, absolutely fine. Yeah, brilliant.
Sorry it's taken me so long to get back on.
Oh, that's all right. Anytime.
18 months we've just been saying, so it just gives us time to build up stuff to talk about. I'm sure.
Yeah. I don't know what.
No, we'll try not to go too heavily down the code.
Yeah.
But that was most of what's been happening. But you've been very busy. Wow. I can't wait to get into some of the stuff that you've been doing. Mainly this. I'll kick off. Last time we spoke, it was, I think, just before the release of A Life Eternal. So we were talking about that. We now have this beauty to add to it as well. Shadow of the Knife, which I can honestly say, and I'm not just doing this because you're on and because you're a friend.
Yes, you are.
I'm not. I found it really difficult, especially the last couple of years, to get my head into a book. There's so many that I picked up and put down again. And honestly, this one I struggled to put down. It didn't take me very long to read at all. And that's not because it's an easy read or anything like that. It just really gripped me. So we will get into that. But yeah, just sort of kind of sum up then. It was August 2020 that we last spoke. So it was a few months into the madness that was COVID. The world was a bit odd. It's changed a little bit since then. What have you been up to, basically? Bring us up to speed.
Not much, really. I mean, just got Shadow of the Knife done. As far as writing, that's it, really. I haven't really done much else. I mean, a little bit. But apart from that, just been sort of getting on. And as we were talking about before, I became a granddad again. So I've got 3 grandkids now. Yeah. So that was nice. So personally, it's been good. Thankfully, the COVID hasn't been striking anyone that I'm close to, which is, fingers crossed, touch wood sort of thing. And hope that stays the same. But yeah, I've just been getting on with life, really, just work. It's been really busy at work. It's, working in a school last year was, it was up and down. I mean, this time last year, we went back to work for 1 day and then we were all off again, and working from home and doing all things on the computer, sort of, remote lessons and setting work and marking work and things from home. So it's been really difficult. And then getting back into work, getting back into school, it's all been about trying to catch up.
Yeah.
The work that these kids have missed, the best part of it, nearly a year's worth of, not just for history, which I teach, but right across the board. So it's been, it's not, I wouldn't say it's been ultra difficult, but it's been hard work, sort of, nose to the grindstone sort of thing. And that's what I've basically been concentrating on more than anything else, to be honest with you.
That's fair enough. And I mean, I've got 2 7-year-olds, as everyone knows, probably because I do keep mentioning them. And I know how disruptive it was last year. We've been talking about this all Christmas, really. Just try as you do, summing up the year. And I think it's been hardest on them because, we had plans to, make better of our lives like we normally do on January the 1st last year. And by January the 4th, it all fell to pieces because we knew the schools were closed and everything. Yeah. And, I think it's affected our years. What years is it that you teach?
I teach year 7 to 11. So that's from 13 years old up to GCSE.
It's a fairly crucial time, isn't it? Really, if you're missing anything.
Yeah. I mean, the year 11s that I've got now, they were in year 9 when this all started. So literally 2 academic years have been, 2 big chunks of their education are taken out of that. But we've just got to do what we've got to do, we've just got to try and get them caught up best we can.
Yeah. Yeah, at least there's been, I think, we felt when the schools closed last January, we noticed a difference than the summer before, because it was very much like, don't worry so much about how much you can get them to do, because we were having to adapt to working from home.
Yeah.
Just keep them safe. By
Yeah.
last year, it was very much like,
get this work done.
Working. You need to make it happen, sort of thing.
Yeah.
That
Be a
was,
teacher.
exactly. Yeah. So
as well as your other job.
That's it. And I know, you know, I'm not a teacher. You know, I don't have the patience for it. So I can only imagine what it was like for you guys to have to do full days like that.
I've been lucky, you know. Me and Kath have been lucky. We haven't had any kids here, and we've got friends who've got sort of children trying to work from home, trying to teach, you know, remote lessons with 2 kids running around. You know, it must have been an absolute nightmare. It was. In that respect, that's one of the good things about being a bit older. So we didn't have those, didn't have to have, you know, other things to worry about. We get on with the job during the day.
Fair enough.
But yeah, so that's been it. It's been a busy year, which has taken my eye off the writing, to be honest with you, in a lot of respects, you know.
Yeah, same here. I mean, I've kind of created more work for myself last year when I could have been writing, obviously, but I'm still finding it very difficult to get my head into it. So I was very, very pleased when you told me last year that you were working on this story that became Shadow of the Knife. I was really looking forward to it. Let's just, before we go on to that, let's in the last time we spoke, I think it was, like I say, just before the release or around about the release time of Life Eternal, just sort of, you know, sum up what that was like, you know, because that was your first book out with your new publisher. Sort of how was that received, and you know, having that book, did that kind of spur your inspiration to write another one?
Oh, definitely. It was not really what it turned out to be, but I think A Life Eternal was, you know, I don't know about you, but there's this thing in me which is, that was the one, that was the book, that was the story that I think I've been sort of leading up to, even though, you know, the prophecy books, the minstrel books are sort of horror. I think A Life Eternal was, so I think I would, maybe because I'd been writing horror and sort of sci-fi with Point of Contact, I wanted to do something different. I wanted to write this idea of something, and I sort of fell in love with that story, and I still do. I think you know, I don't want to, I'm not a person to sort of blow my own trumpet, but I think it is a good book. I think it's a well-written story, and it is a story. It's got something to say other than what is in the story. It to me, it talks about a lot of things about life, really, you know, and about what is a life and what is a good life. And we've talked about this before. So yeah, and it was great. And I found Burning Chair and the you know, I got a load of help with it and re-editing with it and things like that. And we've talked about this before as well. It's hard to, because you know, that's the way I've written it. And that's you know, when you've self-published, you just publish. There you go. That's the way, I'm happy with it. And of course, that's when you find all the mistakes, and that's where you sometimes look back at, you know, with the hindsight of years. I mean, Minstrel's Bargain. If I had, I wouldn't write it like that now. Do you know what I mean? I think
feel quite the same. When I look back on the Wildemore books, they're not by far not my best. They were the first ones. But I've got a favourite, a bit like you know. I think A Necessary End is the peak for me. It's where I had the most fun as well. So you know, I totally get that.
I mean, I said that to you, didn't I? You know, you're, and I think it applies to everybody. And I think you get all this, you get all this advice, or you certainly, I read, you know, write Stephen King on writing, you know, write every day, even if you know. But I don't do that, you know. I really don't do that. I tend to have chunks of time out and not write, and then boom, and really get into it. And I don't think that's the best way. I think that can lead to lots of revision and lots of I don't know, but
that's a good bit of advice. No, a good bit of advice, because I think that's the way that I tended to work as well, and I think that's possibly been my detriment as a writer. I felt it's really good at the time because I have all these ideas I just pull down, but then when I've finished it, I'm void of anything. I think
and sometimes sometimes I often get a bit disheartened as well. You know, you just think, you know, with the Life Eternal, I thought this is a really good book. This is the one, and it's sold okay. It hasn't done too bad, but you know, it's that want of some response. You know, and I'm not knocking it. I have gotten some good response from that book, and 99% positive. You know.
Yeah. You're not going to please everyone, but then
no, of course not.
It's good. You know, you don't want everyone who picks it up to just, you know, I suppose
that's an impossible thing. You can't please. You know, every single person who picks a book up isn't going to enjoy it and isn't going to get the same thing out of it.
No.
Then, you know, I've read some books.
They picked it up for a different reason, then, not necessarily because.
Possibly, or you know, but I think sometimes the premise of a book appeals to us. And I pick it up and I'm thinking, I just can't get into it. You know, I can't get away with it. Or I think, and you see some books on Amazon, you know, with thousands of, you know, reviews, and you think, how did you get these reviews? Because I don't know about you, mate, but last year I spent a good chunk of time just writing, asking for reviews, you know, to reviewers. Not a thing back, not a sausage back, not even a no thanks, you know. And that's fine. They don't owe me anything, and you know, that's cool. But it makes me wonder sometimes what I'm doing wrong.
I know some people. I'm not saying they're all like that, but some people with that level of reviews, there are certain ways they get them, and there's certain ways that I don't agree with.
Well,
you know, I would much rather have one or two that were genuine.
Yeah, I mean, I'm never going to go down a sort of a charlatans route. We've got enough of them in the country at the minute, haven't we? So, but yeah, no, it's just, you know, it's the way it is, and it's life. And there are millions and millions and millions and millions of books out there on Amazon. It's so easy. I said this once before. It's in a interview, a written interview. It is sort of Amazon and is a double-edged sword, because it is so easy now to write a story, press publish, boom, you are a published author. But the books get lost. There are millions, and unless you can raise your sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Sort of, it's like a rise above the rest of them somehow. You're never going to get noticed. You know, you're very lucky.
I think unless you are a top name, very recognizable, where people buy it just simply because your name's attached to it.
Absolutely.
You can't aim to be on the top of the Amazon charts. It's just impossible. You know,
it is, and
to anyone who can, you know.
Oh yeah, absolutely. If you get it, God, it's, you know, I will always support anybody who's doing well in their writing. You know, that's what you want for everybody, but it's not going to happen because it can't, can it? You know.
No. So rolling on from Life Eternal, then let's talk about Shadow of the Knife and where the kernel of this idea first appeared. Did it come directly after Life Eternal, or did you have it bubbling away in the background before?
What happened was, Life Eternal had gone out, and I had been writing. I've still got this story started. I'd been writing another sort of what do we call it? A speculative fiction type of thing, a little bit darker. And I'm not going to tell you too much about it because I'm hoping I will at some point get it finished.
Okay.
But it's about two people who meet through strange circumstances, and strange things happen. Anyway, that's what I was thinking about doing. And I was, you know, tippy-tapping away every now and again. I was adding another few hundred words to it. It wasn't anything like, because when I am writing, you know, during the week when I'm at work, I make sure, once I get in, obviously not at work, if my bosses are watching, you know, I do 1,000 words. I'll do at least 1,000 words every single day. And usually weekends, I'll do 2,000 or 3,000 when I'm writing. And you know, of course, for A Life Eternal and Shadow of the Knife, the draft was done, I reckon, in about 3 weeks. 3 months, sorry.
That's That is
Yeah,
by my standards anyway. That's
yeah. Well, it is by mine because it never used to take me that. But I just I found the last couple of books. If I just want to get it done. But anyway, I hadn't done it. Life Eternal was out, and Pete and Si got in touch with me and they said, "Look, have you got anything else that you fancy that you'd be wanting to get published?" I said, "I haven't at the minute." I says, "I am working on something, blah, 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 this story." But I was sort of think, well, look, I've got a book that I self-published myself called Point of Contact. It's because they were looking towards, I think they're, that it's not that they're erring towards this, but there is a strong idea of sort of thriller books.
Yeah.
And there's a fair few really good thriller writers as well published with them. I've read some really good stories. In fact, all of the books Bernard Ayre have all been excellent ones that I've read. But I said, anyway, I haven't got this. I said, what about this one? Have a look at that. And they said, all right, well, we'll get a copy of that and we'll have a read of it. So they both did that. Then they must have had a conflab and they got back and they said, we like it, but we think it could be, we think you're writing a police procedural book really well.
Right.
Which is, if you've read Point of Contact, and you know, if nobody hasn't, it does sort of start as a I don't know, police procedural type of book, but it sort of goes into a speculative sci-fi type horror aspect as well. And at one point they were talking about, well, we'll take it on, but would you think about redoing it just as a pure sort of police thriller type thing?
Okay.
And I thought about everything. I thought, no, I don't want to do that. I want to keep that. I do like Point of Contact. I still think that is a good well-written story as well, and it's fun. You know, it's daft. Yeah. And I thought, no, I don't. It is daft. Well, of course it is. People bursting into flames. You know, the whole concept is ridiculous.
Yeah, but if you've seen things like Spontaneous Combustion, the film, and that, you're used to that. I grew up on that.
So I thought. But anyway, I thought, no, I'll not do that. But then they got back and they said, well, look, I'll tell you what, we'll take it on because we do like it. And so they took it on, did some, as they always do, they sort of went through the edit and cleaned it up, changed a few mistakes that I had made. And, you know, one of them being the name of the girl who was originally Louise in the book that you've probably read, changed it to Ellie because the other main character is called Laura, that sort of thing. When you're doing it yourself, when you're just writing it, I didn't. And don't forget, Point of Contact was an early doors book. It was written originally about 20 odd years ago.
Right. Yeah.
So they cleaned up and took that on. Yeah. And then they kept saying, "Yeah, you're really good at this. You should write a police thing." And I said to them, "Look, I don't like that stuff. I'm not. I'm not a big crime." Either written fiction or even watching that. I'm not a big fan of, what is it? The AC-12 Line of Duty.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't watch any of them. Again,
I think. You know, my wife loves it and everybody at work was banging on about it. And I just think these things, it's always a detective and they've always got some sort of personal problem in their life. They've either just divorced or this has happened or they've had a death in the family. And they've got and I just think, no, it's just tired. It's never interested me. Yeah. And then I had a thought, and a couple of years ago, I still remember this, which is strange. I had this weird dream about 19th century London, and the baddie in it was Timothy Dalton. There was an evil person in my dream, and I think it's because I'd been watching Penny Dreadful. You know, I think that was where this dream came from. Okay. And then I thought, that's as good. This is this sort of dark Victorian rich person who's actually he's really evil. I'm not saying Timothy Dalton is, but I was just saying this person in the dream. And so I was originally going to have it as a sort of a steampunk sci-fi time travel type thing, where Jack the Ripper was using a time machine to go 2 or 3 years into the past and future and kill people and things like that.
Okay.
That was my idea. You can steal that. That was my idea.
Can't do it as well as
And but then they got so I got in touch and I said to them, well, tell you what about instead of because I love historical fiction. I would argue that I read more historical fiction than anything else, even horror or sci-fi or anything like that. I read Bernard Cornwell and all the Sharp and the Last Kingdom books, and I do love historical fiction. I said, what about a historical crime fiction? And that's what it was going to start as. It's turned into more of an action type thriller, but there is that mystery element to it. So that's how it all came about. And I said, look, I'll get on with it. And again, 3 months, and I got the basic story out, tidied it up, as best I could. And then I sent it off and said, look, we like this. This is great. But again, the editing process started. We don't like this, but that needs to come out. This needs to change. And so you got that back and forth. And out of that, and another strange thing about this book, all my books before, the title has come first.
Okay, yeah.
A Life Eternal was originally Passing It Along.
Yeah.
And you know why that's called that, if you've read the book. And they changed it to A Life Eternal because they was thinking, the title is good and it has got a lot to do with the book, but it's too ambiguous. You probably it needs to be.
No, it wouldn't make sense until you.
Yeah. And so I didn't have a name for this. This is the first story. Even when I was writing it, I provisionally called it Jigsaw, based on one of the characters in the books. But then, and Si was saying, it's Jigsaw, there's all the films, and there's actually a few other books called Jigsaw. But actually, since it's been published, I've seen there's another couple of books called Shadow of the Knife. You can't do anything original.
You can't.
Title-wise.
You can't. I found someone with a necessary end for sale. Yeah. Had a bestseller label slapped all over it. I was like, mine don't get that. But there we go. Never mind.
Neither do mine, mate. Join the club. Yeah.
But that's,
so that's that. Go on, sorry.
I was going to say that's brilliant because I mean it's very evident that you've got a very supportive and encouraging publisher behind you. For them to come to you, and there are those around. Unfortunately, I have experienced them where they take one book on and that's it. You probably, unless you've got anything to go to them with, you're probably lucky if you hear from them again. But they're actually trying to get more out of you.
Yeah, they have. I mean, honest, they are getting bigger, and so I've noticed that the to and fro hasn't been quite as often as it was, but that you can't help that. They've got like an extra. I think there's been another 4 or 5 authors being signed on, so they've got a lot of work to do, and you can't expect to get this all the time. I know they are working behind the scenes, but it's just that they don't seem to have the time to always tell us what's going on. They'll come. I'll get an email suddenly saying, for like A Life Eternal, we've got a BookBub deal, and that's the first time it was on BookBub. Which is quite a big deal if you're an author. So they shoved it on there. So I know they're doing stuff, but
I will show it again. I mean, it's a really beautiful looking book as well.
It's cool, isn't it? I loved it. Loved the title when we saw it. The cover.
Don't judge a book by its cover. I always say that, but I always do because everyone does.
Of course you do.
And I think I still see some float by in some of these groups that I'm in, and people are with publishers and what they have produced not been funny. You can probably. It looks like they've been put together in Microsoft Paint or something.
Well, I think a lot of them are sort of pre-done sort of covers,
Yeah.
And that sort of thing is sort of like that, I think, but it's made up of different elements. It's not just one. They're a professional company. It's a very professional looking book. It's a great thing to say. I like it as well. I love the cover of A Life Eternal as well. I thought it was understated and just and it sort of put the point across nicely. Just the clock, I mean, that's that whole book is about time, isn't it? That's what it's about. So.
Yeah, that was beautiful. But without giving too much away then, because we built it up, we've kind of, we've discussed it, we've discussed how it's come about. So just, in a nutshell, just give us a flavour of what the story's about.
In a nutshell, right. So this is there's no sci-fi or horror or anything like this in the era Speculative. It's a pure historical crime thriller, and it takes place in 1890, 2 years after the Jack the Ripper murders, and a body is discovered on the second anniversary, so the 31st of August 1890. A body is discovered of a woman, this prostitute, in Bucks Row, which is the anniversary of the first the discovery of Polly Nichols's body in Bucks Row. So anyway, a detective from Leman Street Station, CID detective, is called in, and he, for a sort of a bit of a convoluted reason, he calls on the help of a sort of a surgeon who works. He's a doctor who, but part-time, he's a criminologist, and he works into unlocking the secrets of killers' brains and why they do things and what they might do next and things like that. So the two of these guys, and they're from very different backgrounds. The detective, Handy, is from the gutters. He's from the absolute slums, and just by luck, he ends up being brought up, and ending up being a policeman. The other guy, Carter Jackson, he's called Dr. Jackson. He's named Jigsaw Jackson. That's why I was going to call the book Jigsaw. The people of the East End have nicknamed him Jigsaw because he's an orthopedic surgeon, and he sort of puts people's bones back together. Anyway, the story is the two of them. Basically, another body is discovered, and the whole story becomes a race against time to find out who was killing these women, and to stop them. And that's basically what the whole story is all about. And it's basically about the difference. There's a lot of it about the difference, but what differences between men and women in Victorian Britain, differences between the rich and the poor in Victorian Britain as well. And I quite like it. I love the characters. I like the characters that I've created, and I hope to do another story with
that. There you go. It's one of my later questions.
Yeah, oh, sorry.
I was going to say, no, it's fine. It's fine. I never stick to a schedule. But yeah, I would love to know that, it could be a standalone one. That's one thing I said about it. You could kind of make up for your own imagination what happens next, or they could breed a series of sorts out of this.
I don't know. I don't know how far I could go with that, because I know by the end of the third Minstrel book, I was really sick of writing about Minstrel and Phil Sturgis. But I've talked to you about this before. There's sometimes when I think I would love to bring Minstrel back a little bit. So I think these books, I certainly will do a sequel. I want to do a sequel. I've already written a couple of chapters and I've got an idea. I know what the story's going to be.
Awesome.
With Handy and Jarman, Jigsaw Jarman. We changed his name from Jackson to Jarman. That was another change, and I keep in my mind he's still Jigsaw Jackson, but it was Jigsaw Jarman. So yeah, that's one thing I will do. Hopefully, at some point this year I'll get that done.
One thing I will say about this now, there's obviously Jack the Ripper. Everybody, an adult probably knows the history of it, or has heard something of it. I've read another book. Chuck Chapman, who I interviewed in the first series as well, did a book about the Charles Manson murders, and I think they are two really high profile characters and murder cases. What I love about both books, yours and his, is that you take a different spin on it. Yours doesn't aim to answer the question of who is Jack the Ripper or try to retell what happened. This is based, like say, afterwards. So just talk about the inspiration behind the events in your book. Is it rooted in is there some kind of reality in there, or is it largely sort of your imagination?
Imagination. I mean, I was worried about writing this. I'm a historian, I'm a history teacher, but I've never, apart from sort of teaching at Key Stage 3 about the Industrial Revolution and the conditions in the East End of places like the East End of London, I'm not an expert by any means at all, and I'm not. And there are so many experts on Jack the Ripper. So many people know so much about it. And I thought, if I'm going to write a story about Jack the Ripper, somebody will tear it apart, because, and rightly so. There will be mistakes in it. And that's why I did the historic note at the end, where I said, if there's any mistakes, we'll just call it artistic license, you know. And that's why I set it slightly after. I wanted that world of Jack the Ripper. But I didn't want Jack the Ripper, you know, that who was so infamous, as you know, as you've said, everybody knows all the kids. There's two people when the Year 7s come into school, they've heard of Hitler and they've heard of Jack the Ripper, you know, these two horrible people. So the inspiration was I wanted to write a historic book, and honestly, it was lockdown, you know, as well, so you couldn't really do any proper research. So it was a lot of internet research, sort of married to what I already knew. So I had some ideas of where to go with things and what I wanted to put across. What I wanted to put across was just how horrific those streets must have been, and just how bad. And it's, you know, it's what, 130 years ago. It's crazy how close in time it is, but how just so different life was, how cheap life was, you know. So, and I've always had a bit of an interest in Victorian Britain, just a passing interest. I've always liked looking at Victorian, you know, images, and I sometimes sit on, and I did it a lot when I was writing this book, was, you know, YouTube. They've got these old footage from, you know, 1900 London or something, but they've colorized it. So, and honestly, I sat for hours watching this. I just find it fascinating, all the horses. And I didn't find out until after I'd written this book, they actually had like multi-story car parks for the horses to, you know, stables for all the horses, or taxis and things like that. Crazy.
That's amazing. That's brilliant. I think one of the challenges I think, you know, behind one of the great things that you've done with writing one that almost goes loosely tied in, but it's your own story, is if you were trying to do a retelling of something like this, how do you stand out? Amongst everyone else? At least your book, you know, that's part of the reason, apart from the fact that I love your writing anyway, it's part of the reason why I couldn't put this book down, is because I almost wanted to see, there was this thread of Jack the Ripper running through it, because there were these similarities in that, but you almost wanted to know who it was and what was going to happen, how it's going to turn out. And I put in my review, when it's one of the few times that I've had to go out and write a review straight away when I finished the book. And I put one of my favorite lines that you've put in there is actually at the end. That's really just shows the strength of this, is that right up to the end, you are coming out with some fantastic writing. And there's moments, I won't say what it is, you know, but there's a moment in there where you almost, you know, it's towards the end of the book and you're like, you cannot do that. you can't.
I know what you're talking about.
You know, you need to tell us more. But you've given us a reason to want another one, which, job done. So, well,
that was the sort of point. It wasn't the point that it was, you know, because the characters end up as different people at the end, I think. And I already had it in my head, this idea for another story with these characters. And so I thought I'll do it like that. Now I do want to, it's like I say, at some point I will get back into, I've written the first couple of chapters and it's breakneck right from the start. It's all action right from the start. Okay. The second book, I'm hoping it's going to be a bit more, not spread out over a few weeks, but literally a day or a couple of days, something like that, much more sort of fast paced.
I'm reading one at the moment exactly like that, and again, same thing. I cannot step away from it for too long because it's so pacey. It's got to be relentless. But so I got to ask, as a writer to a writer, because I'm intrigued when ideas come to me as well for characters. The main characters, or any characters in this, were they anyone in there inspired by someone you know, or someone you've heard about?
No. I think Handy is inspired by You know what? You're too young for this, but I think Handy is inspired by Jack Regan off the Sweeney, the old Sweeney thing from the 70s.
Yeah.
And it's this. I was intrigued when I started investigating, when I started researching the history of the Metropolitan Police. It's such an interesting history of the Met, you know, and what those coppers had to do and the shifts they worked and all of this. And I thought they must have been hard as nails, these guys, you know, patrolling these streets by themselves with a whistle to, you know, contact somebody else, without a gun or anything like that.
They got it easy now, really, haven't they?
I wouldn't say they've got it easy at all. I wouldn't fancy it, but so I think Handy, who actually, it's strange how things happen, isn't it? Handy was always going to be a secondary character. It was always going to be Carter Jarman, who was the main protagonist in the book, you know, and the book was going to be about him.
Yeah.
Probably why I started out calling it Jigsaw. But as I wrote Handy, he seemed to think, no, you're not going to make me a secondary character. I'm going to be just as important. And that's what another thing I like about this is the two characters. It's both of them. It's both of them together. It's not one or the other. You know, they've both got the problems and they've both got their backstories and things. But they're as strong as each other. And I think you could write a standalone just with Handy. You could write a standalone just with Jarman. But I think the work together, the like I said, they're two totally different characters, but they latch together. For the first time, this book didn't really have anybody that I know. Most of my mate Darren, who reads all my books, and he's always saying, right, that character is such and such that week, because I've known him, I've known him since we were kids. And I'll go, and that character's that character, and that character's, and I'll say, oh, it probably is actually. But I thought, if I'm writing a story about 19th century London, that's so far away from my background, which is unreal. But I had to stick somebody from the northeast in, so I made Curmudgeon from Newbig, which is just a coastal town just up the road a bit.
Why not?
Because I can't have a book without a Geordie in there somewhere.
Why not? Did you find this more fun then when you're having to set it somewhere and at a time completely different? Do you feel that you got a little bit more freedom, ironically?
If anything, that's actually the other way around, because you have to get the street names right, and to do that you need to get getting the historical things correct, which is problematic, because that contains what you can do. You can't just suddenly say they jumped in a Ford Focus or whatever. But obviously at the same time it is a work of fiction. You've got to have there's a factory in the book that's got a steam engine. That would never have been true in real life. And that's why I put it in the historic note. I'm just saying, look, I know this is wrong. And I know it's
layman like me who doesn't really know much about that time. That complete.
But there's always somebody who does. This is the thing with the historical novel. And if I'm reading a historical novel, and if things are too far, and I've seen books where people they weren't even alive at this time, and I'll just no, I'm not even reading that. So I knew I would make mistakes. I think that is writing something from 140 years ago. The streets don't even exist anymore. Half the streets names have changed, and this obviously London, the city of London has completely changed over those years. Partly thanks to Hitler, which destroyed a lot of it. But I had a review the other day, and it was one of the first times where I had to stop myself from replying to it. And it wasn't anything nasty. She actually gave me a nice, she said she loved the book. It was a good book, and she liked the story. But she took umbrage at the fact that I said that Jarman was drinking coffee. And, the reviewer said, well, they would be drinking tea. And I thought, well, have you ever read any Sherlock Holmes, which was written in the 1890s and 80s? That Sherlock's drinking coffee all the time. Of course they drank coffee. But the same reviewer did say something which struck a chord, and they said that the prostitutes would be illiterate, where there is one of the parts of the story where they have to read something. It's not a big thing that they have to read.
Yeah.
But I had, and there were educational acts that had come out as far back as 1870, so 20 years before this. Right. There were educational acts which made all children had to go to school at least until the age of 10.
Right.
I think it was something like 80% of kids never attended, because they were always up the chimneys or down the pit or something like that. So I'll give her that. Yeah. I'll give her that one. That was the other. Oh no, I'll not tell about what the other one was because it's sort of central to the plot.
Okay, fair enough.
But
tell me off air.
Yeah, but it's not. That's not a problem. Everybody has got their own opinions. But sometimes I'm wrong, and I'm more than willing to admit when I am wrong. Yeah. But I'm not wrong about the coffee. They did drink coffee.
Stay firm with that. That's fine. You can, I would love to write something historical. I love history just for my own.
Yeah, I know you do.
Yeah, certain parts and whatever, certain times. But just for that reason, I think I would be worried that I couldn't put in enough research, and I'd leave myself wide open.
Another problem is you can't write as if the book was written in Victorian times.
No.
Do you know what I mean? It's got to be modern. Yeah. It has to be a modern twist on history. For me, it's Bernard Cornwell. I mean, he freely admits this isn't a history book. He has real events.
Yeah.
He will, but he's done it with the sharp books a lot. And he says at the end, I've moved that battle to here, a different date. Because he's writing fiction, and he's writing adventure fiction set in the past. And I think that's basically what Shadow of the Knife is. It's crime adventure fiction set in the past. I try to get as much right as I possibly could with the internet. And Darren as well, my mate Darren, who is he's sort of interested in Jack the Ripper and stuff, and he had some old maps of London and the East End, which I sort of plotted, and I just made, I looked at these streets and I thought, well, that could be where the run down there, and and that was quite fun.
That's cool.
Having a sort of a map.
Yeah, it's kind of, I suppose gives you even just the point of giving you street names to refer to, rather than to sort of sit and make them up for yourself.
Because you can't just use modern maps, because like I say, a lot of the streets had changed. I mean, there's one of the streets mentioned in the book, which is Myrtle Street, Myrdle. It's now changed. I think that's changed to Myrtle Street. They changed and other ones have completely changed completely or disappeared. They don't even exist anymore. A lot of these back sort of lanes and back alleys, and they're just totally gone, and there's just be one road going through it. And the Whitechapel Road, it's the A something, on a modern map. It doesn't actually say Whitechapel Road, although Whitechapel Road obviously still exists. But there you go.
You can't get it all right, but
no, you can't.
But it's a sterling, I would say anyway, from someone who hates research for a book. When I'm writing one, it's the one thing that slows me down. I think, the attention to detail in this, that I can see again from the historical section at the back, is marvelous, really, what you've gone through.
Good. I tried my best. Right, like I say, I'm bound to have made mistakes. It's my first historical, fiction.
Did you okay, I'll put you on the spot then now. Did you enjoy this as much as going back to your horror stuff that we sort of met each other over?
I go in fits and starts. I'm at the minute I'm not into horror much. I'm into science fiction and stuff at the minute. In fact, I'm into old school science fiction. I'm reading The Day of the Triffids again at the moment. Okay. Yeah, one of awesome. John Wyndham is one of my all-time favorites, and I've decided I'm going to go back through his things. And Day of the Triffids, I think, it's just got everything. It's just a fantastic,
I haven't read
fantastic. Oh man, it's crazy. It's such a good book. But I still like a horror book. I still like reading a horror book. And there's no way I'm saying I would never go back and write horror again, because I probably will at some point. I actually like writing horror short stories, the anthologies. I quite like. Short stories are really good for a quick, bit of horror bite.
Yeah.
But I don't rule anything out, Who knows what the future what I'll get up to.
Yeah.
I might bring Minstrel back at some point,
Well, again, let's flip to that I had to ask the question, where is he? Is he coming back?
Who knows? He might be just.
There's a lot of us that miss him, so.
Yeah, I know. And I do as well. He's not purely evil, is he? I mean, in the last book, I think I sort of tried to give him some reason for this. This hatred that he has for everything.
Yeah.
But I do like the character. I like the idea of that victim becoming a perpetrator and because he's a victim has turned him into what he becomes, with obviously with supernatural powers in his case.
Yeah.
But and I like the way he's not going to stand it from not even the devil itself is going to get in his way. You know what I mean? he's so conceited.
Yeah. Have you had enough of it? Not enough, obviously, because you're saying there's no plans at the moment. You're not working on anything to do with Minstrel, but do you feel like you've had enough of an absence that it could rekindle your
possibly? I mean, we were talking about getting the trigger jack in Minstrel. And I don't know. At the moment, my head's not in that space. My head is more sort of thrillery, maybe historical, but I do want to go back. I like that speculative side. I think that's where I sit. If because it was funny. One of the other authors at Bernardshire, Fee Phillips, she did some interviews with all the authors, and she interviewed me, and she sort of introduced it was just a written interview, but it's multi-genre writer. And I thought, oh, there's a funny thing. I'm a multi-genre writer. Is that right? Now I thought, well, I've written horror, sci-fi, speculative, and now historical fiction, I suppose. Yeah. But one of my favorite writers is Robert Harris, and I think he's a multi-genre writer. He writes, speculative fiction like Fatherland. He's written historical fiction. He wrote a great book called Pompeii, which was all about the Pompeii explosion in Rome, in Italy. And he's written historical things about World War II, and then he's written things like the Fear Index. Have you read the Fear Index? That's really good.
Okay.
That's all about sort of artificial intelligence and things like that. It's good. Yeah.
So it's not something that you really set out to you're going to sit and write. My next one's going to be in this genre.
Well, I did with this one because I'd said to Peter Sideburn and Chair, what about a historical crime thriller? Yeah. So I set out to do that, but I was a bit nervous because I've never written anything, a full length novel, without some form of, and I'll tell you what I like about speculative or sci-fi is you can think, how's he going to get out of this? Well, he'll fly out the window, so because you can make something up. You can't do that if it's sort of grounded in real life.
No, I would say that's something I've struggled with in the past, because I really did want to write something that's really, I wouldn't say there's nothing comical about my books necessarily. They are quite serious, but I wanted to write something that was rooted in reality. Yeah. But there's always something in the back of my mind. It's like, oh, wouldn't that be good? I can't shake it. So I'm like,
I know.
It's just got to go that way now, because I can't really chase that idea away. But,
I think you've just, me and you and every writer at some point has to think, well, I've decided, I think, I don't want to be confined by genre. I don't want to be known as, I wouldn't mind to be known as any sort of author, but, but Richard Ayre, horror author or science fiction. publishers do tend to, and I'm not talking about Bernard J, I'm talking about in general, that, you know, advertisers, publishers like to pigeonhole people. Look at Stephen King. I mean, horror author Stephen King, but he's not just a horror author. He's written lots of different types of stories and different types of books. You know, he's written sci-fi, he's written things like The Green Mile.
I was going to say Green Mile. I've never read it, never watched it. Even I know that's not rooted in horror. So it's although it is speculative in a way.
But then he's written things. I mean, the short story that Rita Hayworth in The Shawshank Redemption, which became the film, isn't. That's not any speculativeness in that at all, or horror, human horror, I suppose. But so yeah.
Just author. That's just, you know, that's just the aim, isn't it? You write stories, and just regardless of what it is, you know.
And I think I've come to the conclusion. I've come to the point where I've realised it's probably not going to happen. Not to a massive degree. I'm not saying, well, woe is me, feel sorry for us. I'm just saying I've sort of realised that I am knocking on a bit now. I'm going to write if I want to write. And if I want to write something, I'll write something. And if Bernard J want to take it on, great. If they don't, then I might think I'll not do anything with it, or I might change it. You know, I haven't got the time. Going back to what we were talking about earlier on, I haven't got the time to spend hours marketing myself.
No.
And I don't know what to do. I've God knows I've tried. I've looked at, you have to do this, you have to do that. Oh, look at the success I had on these. And there are so many shysters out there who will try and take your money off you.
Exactly.
That I've now just gone, you know, I'm not going to listen to anybody. I'm just going to write if I want to write. I will try and plug it as best I can.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to worry about it.
I felt guilty about that. It's the one thing I think that made me fall out of it a couple of years ago, as well as, you know, COVID and everything like that, is I thought, if I can't dedicate enough, I'm spending 6 months writing a book. I can't market it enough to get people to read it, you know, enough people to read it. Is it really worth it for me? And then another local author down here, I saw a post he put out a few weeks ago, which really sort of hooked me back in, because he admitted the same. And he said, I gave up trying to market. You know, I write, I put books out there. Yeah. And I was like, well, at least it's not just me. You know,
it's not just you, it's me. I would say it's probably 80% of everybody who writes. There is a small percentage of people who actually know what they're doing and do it well. And if you want to make it into a business, I think you have to do that. But you know, it would be lovely, wouldn't it, if it was like the olden days where you were a well-known author, you write a book once a year. Your publisher does it. You've got all these marketing agents to take it and sell it, and you just turn up and do the book signings. That would be lovely, but the world's not like that anymore. No. I suppose it is for some writers.
Well, you know. My real bugbear at the moment is celebrities who write novels. Some of them may be brilliant, but the ones that I've read, especially the ones who will remain nameless at the moment, who've moved into children's writing, I've read their books. I can't stand them because I don't enjoy them. And I'm like, you've got to the top of the charts, you got run, and because of who you are,
because of your name.
Exactly. And you know, that pushes the writers who are doing it because it's their love of it, and that who are really good at it.
I know.
Get pushed down, but you know,
I agree with you. It does. It's one of the things that really annoys me. And like you say, I'm not saying that I'm sure they're very, very good, but they have had that extra thing because of their name. They're going to get an agent. They're going to get and
they're going to get sales.
You know what happened? You know what happened yesterday?
Go on.
I got just talking about agents. I got a rejection, a short story, a little children's short story, a little Ryman short story that I'd sent off November 2020, and they've I got the rejection yesterday. So what was that? January the 1st, 2022.
Wow. So they must have been umming and ahhing. There must have been.
Oh
hard for them to
God,
turn
yeah,
down,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. It must have been flying on the floor underneath the. I think
Oh,
it's
no.
they probably all just got back after COVID. Maybe.
Is that a genre that you would like to pursue a bit further? Children's.
I
ones?
would. I've tried to write a children's story, and I'm not at the minute. I'm not very good at it. What I think I'm okay at is doing little rhyming. Because I used to, and the thing I sent off, I wrote for my daughters. You know, I wrote for them when they were little.
Okay.
And I wrote these daft little rhyming stories. And I like making a little story and making it rhyme and things like that. But apparently that doesn't really sell because you can't. It doesn't translate well into other languages and things like that.
Oh, okay.
I can't draw either. So you would need an artist to do it properly.
It's not cheap.
I mean, you've done it, haven't you? So
yeah. Again, it wasn't.
You had Anita Harris reading yours.
I know, that's great, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's still
cool.
Up there.
How cool is that?
And Chris Jarvis, you know, I mean, I'm really grateful that they've each had that kind of treatment. It wasn't cost-free to myself, I will say.
Yeah.
You know, I would love to be at the point. I keep getting asked when you did another one that I simply can't, you know, make that commitment, you know, kind of commitment anymore to it. But you know, I'm really proud of what's happened with them.
Fantastic.
You know, it's something I can hang my hat on. So yeah. So
Brilliant.
So before we sort of start to wrap up, unfortunately, I can see what the time is. So you've touched on it a little bit. Let's find out what lies ahead. What does 2022 have in store for yourself? Right.
Well, hopefully. I've stopped looking ahead. I mean, COVID is sort of thinking, God alive, anything can happen in the next half hour.
Stop still for 2 years.
Tell us about it. I'm hoping at some point in this year I'll get the love back and I'll start writing. I'll finish this sequel. So I think that's the first thing.
Yeah.
I want to finish that. And hopefully Burn and Shell take it on, you know, if they enjoy it.
Yeah.
Apart from that, I mean, I don't know about you, but I have ideas all the time. And I've got about 3 different things. Excuse me, 3 different things started. You know, and this is great, and then I'll just lose the energy for it. And I'll sometimes, and I've just remembered I had a wonderful idea this morning waking up, and it's gone. I need to get a bit of paper and a pad or a pen beside my bed, because I'll often wake up with a really good idea, a generalized thing, but then it'll be gone. But that's now, because this real life gets in the way. Real life gets in the way of everything, you know.
It does.
But I promise you, I'll get this sequel done at some point this year, and hopefully Burn and Shell take it on. You know.
Awesome. I've been a bit the same. I'm not pelting with, you know, large scale goals this year. I think I'm beyond that now. I want to set myself something achievable. I've got a few things in the you know, going around my brain, which I'll talk to you off. I don't want to put too many ideas out there.
No.
But I think I talked to a lot of people. They're about the same. They're you know, this year, I think after everything that's happened, they're like, they don't want to set themselves up to fail, but you don't want to set themselves up to be overwhelmed by too much. Let's focus on
absolutely not.
Things, you know.
And I know work-wise, I'm going to be really busy this year as well. So, you know, I'm saying I'll get this sequel done. I hope I do. But if the job that pays me mortgage I've got to put the effort into that. You know what I mean?
Precisely.
But I would like to get another book done with these characters, because I do like them, and let's see where it goes from there.
You know, I'm sure all the readers everyone who's read this book will be awaiting that one. So no pressure, but
okay.
You know, we're waiting. So brilliant. So before I let you go, just I normally do, where can people find the book firstly? Where can people find you?
People can find me at richardayreauthor.com. That's my website. And there is there's a little contact page. So if you want to get in contact, if you want to just tell me you like one of my books once, that would be lovely. It'll make me feel that it's not all worthless. The book, obviously the book is available from Amazon, but it's also available on a wide range of platforms. You can buy it from Burning Chair. They've got their own shop, so you can buy the paperback from burningchair.com. But it's also available at Barnes and Noble. It's available on WH Smith's website. It is available at where else is it available? Walmart, apparently.
Oh, okay.
All sorts. Anywhere you can buy a book, you can buy it there. Apart from obviously Waterstones or anything. I think it is on their website, but not obviously not in the front window.
Not
at
yet.
Newcastle. Not yet.
Not yet.
Unless I put a brick through the window and then put it in there. That'll be the only way it gets there.
Hey, you know what? Foot traffic. You do that, someone's bound to see it. So.
Might be worth a prison sentence. Yeah.
Let's not say that.
Oh, good.
Richard, thank you so much, firstly, for your time, for coming on again.
Oh, man. Well, thanks for asking me again.
No.
I thought you'd have been sick of us the last time.
No, not at all. It was actually, in terms of, views and listens and that, yours is still one of my most listened to episodes across all podcasts. Cool. So, it's a pleasure to have you. I think
people can't believe that kind of, what's that? What's that ugly bugger? Yeah.
Hey, whatever gets them in. It's all good. It's all good.
It'll be your nose. It'll be
my nose. For people
that'll be what it'll.
May if you are wondering for the next sort of 2 or 3 episodes, if I do look like this, my wheelie bin did this to me. I haven't been in a fight. I wish I had some kind of fascinating story to go along with it. But no, thank you for such a great book again.
Thank you, mate. It's been a pleasure. It's been great.
And all the best with everything. Obviously, we keep in touch anyway. But all the best for whatever this year brings. And
and you.
18 months time, I'll have you back on.
Okay, mate. And happy New Year as well.
And you, mate. And you.
Yeah.
Take it easy.
Thanks very much, Chris.
No worries. Cheers, mate.
Cheers, Paul.
If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to like, share, and hit the subscribe button. Also follow us on Facebook and Instagram to keep updated about all future shows.